let's get to it. Let's start with the South. We're going to have Ben, who, of course, is on the 1s and 2s. He's going to bring this up. And again, we're going to go game by game. We're just going to poll shop here. Chip, I'm going to start with you because you're right there under me. Let's go Auburn and the play-in. I mean, I don't need that. I don't think I need to go through all five here.
We can go. We can just take Auburn. We can advance them. I do like Alabama State. I don't know if anybody's got any other first four thoughts there, but I think that the Hornets will be able to get there, create a nice little in-state rivalry. But yeah, give me Bruce Pearl's Tigers advancing.
Yeah, I don't know that I need to take a poll here. Does anybody want to give like a hand up and just like say a word about Alabama State, this play-in game or anything like that? Go ahead, Zach.
It's probably going to be my first play of the tournament on St. Francis because Alabama State, the SWAC team, I think they led the country in close victories right there with Michigan. They've been winning. So this is one of those, if you're looking at the spread versus money line, maybe you take them on the money line, but spread-wise, I'm going to be on St. Francis. The big story already going into the tournament is the coach's son from Alabama State. I believe his last name is Medlock. So that's already an angle as well. But Alabama State, they play close games, even in their SWAC. All 3 victories. They're so close in their conference tournament. They might have not got past in the last game there, but there was a couple injuries late for Jackson State. So I'm going to look at St. Francis in the first round, in the first 4 plus 3.5.
I love that. Put all the betting picks out there as well. We're going to have this show tomorrow at 12:30 as well, and it's going to focus on the betting, and especially these first round games. But if you have them now, let's hear some of them now as well. I mean, I haven't heard so far in 24 hours a play on St. Francis, so I absolutely love that. All right, we go to Louisville, Creighton, and Tom Casale. I actually have to start with you on this one because I was in the Discord yesterday, and I know you and Mike McClure were in there, and you actually gave out a pick on Louisville money line, correct?
Yeah, there was 2 teams that I liked that was going to be based on matchup, and they were Louisville and Missouri. Missouri's matchup I don't love. Louisville, I think, got a great matchup because they're going to be in your face. They're going to turn you over. They're athletic, and that's where Creighton struggles. And, I do want to specify that, Mike likes Kansas, which I'm not necessarily that high on, but I think he makes a good argument, and I like where Kansas is located in the tournament. But UConn isn't any good, all right? They're just not good. So when you beat UConn, that's not an impressive win to me. The Big East is down. I think Louisville wins this game rather easily. The only negative here is it's that noon Thursday game, which I'm 1 in 38 lifetime. So I made the play before I saw the schedule, but I do like the matchup.
All right, Chip Patterson, what do we like in Louisville, Creighton? Are we on Team Casale here, or are you going the other way?
No, I'm going with the Cards here. Yeah, I think that Louisville is another team that you could argue is probably a quality of team that is better than 8. 8 would say that you're number 32 in this field, and I would have Louisville much higher than that. And so, yeah, give me the Cards here. Also, bonus, this game's in Lexington, Kentucky.
Yeah.
So we want to start talking about sites and times and who got the advantage here. The fact that a Louisville fan base that has been absolutely energized by Pat Kelsey this season, that they are going to be able to try to fill up their rivals' arena, not just for this game, but the next one that we're going to talk about. Big home court advantage, in my opinion, for the Cards.
Yeah, Auburn having to play what will feel like an away game potentially if Louisville wins that game. So we got 2-0 on Louisville. Let's round it out. Larry, which side are we on here? Oh, you're on mute. But your body language screamed Louisville there.
Fine with the guys with Louisville, sorry.
All right. And so who are we leaving out? Zack, Cimini, where are we at on Louisville, Creighton?
I've got Creighton in my bracket, and sometimes you can be fooled by these teams getting lower seeds, and I think that's the case in the ACC. Clemson, to me, a 5 seed, Louisville, an 8 seed, North Carolina, 11 seed. We've seen this with the Mountain West getting these lower seeds playing well. In Louisville, you got to remember, they put this team together this year. Creighton, they've had that longevity. Those players have been there year over year over year.
That's true. Mike McClure, Louisville or Creighton?
In honor of Buckets being in the chat, I'm going to give you this. In a one-on-one confrontation, a Blue Jay is likely to win due to its larger size and more aggressive nature, although Cardinals can be surprisingly fierce when defending their territories. This is close to their territory. I do lean Creighton only because I would like them just a touch against the spread. I think both teams are actually underseeded, believe it or not. Leaning Creighton, but not the strongest play. And as Tom mentioned, this is the very first game of the tournament. It'll be the very early morning game.
Bird fight.
Bird fight. We do have buckets in the chat, by the way. And if you watch the early edge this morning, he likes Wofford against Tennessee. We're going to get to that game later on. But thank you, Buckets, for being in the chat. His dice and his coin flips, they don't lie. So it's 3-2 Louisville. So Louisville will advance against Auburn. Let's go down the board here. Michigan and UC San Diego. Mike McClure, I'm going to start with you here. I mean, I did hear a nice stat about UC San Diego in terms of, hey, they can certainly turn you over. Could be a problem for Michigan. It's your classic 12-5 spot where people like to pick an upset. Where are you at in Michigan in terms of advancing, not against the spread, but in terms of advancing in this bracket?
I picked Michigan to advance here still, but it is not the best matchup for them. Not only did I think they get a little underseeded as a 5 after what they did in the conference tournament, this is not the easiest matchup here. This UC San Diego team is good. I think they can cover a spread. I think that this number is very tight, but I will be on the Michigan side here in terms of advancing in the bracket.
All right, Larry, who's going to advance, Michigan or UC San Diego?
I'll go with the Tritons. Everybody seems to be on them. They force a lot of turnovers, and we know that is Michigan's bugaboo. And we've seen these Big Ten champs after that grueling run struggle early in the tournament. Now, I do want to say one thing, guys. My bracket I had to fill out last night for deadline purposes to get on the site, to get on CBS. So if what I'm saying now conflicts, I'm going to take a pass on that because I needed time to digest things.
Fair enough. Chip Patterson, are we advancing Michigan?
I am advancing Michigan. I'm concerned about the guard play against a team that forces so many turnovers. The fact that UC San Diego against top 50 opponents had really good results and even close margins against the better teams that they played. Not a lot of losses, but still something to keep an eye on. But the Wolverines in that Big Ten tournament really impressed me. I mean, they were underdogs in every single game, right? And they end up winning every single game outright. It's like Dusty May can coach or something. It's crazy. So I'm going to go with the Wolverines to advance.
I have a feeling tomorrow this might be one of the games one of you has featured from a betting standpoint. Zach, are we advancing Michigan here over UCSD?
I'm going to take UCSD, but this is a tough one right now. If you ask me tomorrow, I might say Michigan. So I'm just impressed when you look at teams that are in this tournament, the lower level teams. UC San Diego, they run just impressive offense, set after set after set. And that could give Michigan problems because they are so fluid. They're going to go on a run or two that's going to challenge this Michigan team.
Okay, Tom, we're already advancing Michigan because we got 3 votes for them, but I'm just curious, are you advancing Michigan or are you going for the upset here?
Yeah, listen, this is a tough game. I mean, I'm with Zach. If you ask me 5 minutes from now, I might change. I took Michigan. The game reminds me a little bit of South Dakota State Providence from a couple years ago. Providence won all these close games, right? They were number one by far in like Ken Palm's luck factor. And South Dakota State actually closed as a slight favorite in that game. And the game was close, but Providence found a way to win. Michigan just finds a way to win these tight games. I think it's going to be close, but I give Michigan the slightest lean.
All right. Michigan is going to advance. There are a lot of comments in the chat about this game. Eric David says, hail to the victors. I said Wagner because Wagner, didn't he play for Michigan a few years back? Anyway, Franz Wagner I'm talking about. Mitch Wagner's 22 says, I think UCSD will struggle against Michigan bigs. Of course, they have those 2 bigs. And then we've got, by the way, thanks for being in here. Hit the like button. Jason Harrod, Mark Gillett, Joe Neuenfeld is in here. Some unfamiliar names, which is great. Make sure you're subscribed to this SportsLine channel because a ton of content coming your way across all sports this week. All right, let's go Texas A&M and Yale. Tom Casale, I'm going to start with you on this one. Are we advancing Texas A&M or upset special here?
Yeah, this was the one I think it took the longest for me to make a pick when I did my brackets. I ended up going Texas A&M, but they're one of those teams that's hard to gauge because they don't shoot necessarily well, so they got to dominate the boards. They got to turn you over. I probably would have taken Yale if they didn't beat Auburn last year. So Texas A&M is going to be ready for this game. Again, it's going to be a close game. A lot of these lower seed game, they're pretty tight. This is a pretty even game, but I lean Texas A&M slightly.
Zack Cimini, Texas A&M or Yale? Who are we advancing?
Just give me Texas A&M right now. I don't love Buzz Williams in March, but give me Texas A&M.
Mike McClure?
Yeah, A&M for me. They just enough of a talent gap. I think it could be interesting for, 32 of the 40 minutes of play, but A&M should pull away here.
Larry, are we co-signing all of this? It's 3-0.
Yeah, I'll sign that. I don't think Wade Taylor is going out that early.
Chip?
I will offer my dissent, even as the decision passes through at 4-1. Give me Yale. New Haven, Connecticut doesn't just produce great pizza. It also has one hell of a basketball coach in James Jones. And this, look, Ivy League competition compared to what they're going to face with the Texas A&M front line is nowhere close, but this was the best offensive rebounding team in the Ivy League in conference play. It's a group that understands the assignment when it comes to crashing the boards. I've got this one as Yale, but I don't think it would be a long stay if they pull off one win.
All right, let's finish this portion of the bracket. By the way, we're going to spend a little bit more time on the games that we know are going to happen, which is obviously these round one games. As we get further into the bracket, we're going to make calls, but we're not necessarily going to spend as much time on the hypothetical matchups here because that show would take 3 hours here, right? So, okay, so we'll finish the round one games. Ole Miss versus the UNC, the controversial UNC SDSU winner here. Let's see, Zach, I'm going to start with you. Is Ole Miss advancing, or are we taking one of these play-in winners? Harder to do right now because we don't know who actually is going to win that game, but nonetheless, who you picking to advance?
I'm going to go with history here, and I'll just take the play-in winner. I'll go with North Carolina over Ole Miss. Having that momentum of playing that first game is always beneficial for the play-in game team.
Tom?
Yeah, listen, I think one of these second-tier SEC teams could win a game or two. I kind of like Ole Miss. I mean, North Carolina would be a tough matchup, but I lean Rebels.
All right. Chip Patterson, I'll go to you next.
The stat we were looking for earlier is 12 of the 13 seasons since the first four was introduced. A first four winner has won at least one game in the round of 64 to get to the round of 32, if not gone farther. I believe that North Carolina will be that. And also, if we do get North Carolina against Ole Miss, I would not be surprised to see North Carolina as a narrow betting favorite over the 6 seed Rebels.
Very interesting. Mike McClure, you're nodding your head. Yes, that's true.
Yeah, North Carolina would be a 1.5 point favorite over Ole Miss if they win. Right now I would make it about 1, but again, giving some credit to North Carolina for having won that game head-to-head against San Diego State. I think that if you're looking for leverage when filling out a bracket, I think this is one of the most obvious choices. And what I mean by that, Ben, if you could scroll back to the top on this, you'll see basically who picked who. It'll tell you 75% of the field has picked Ole Miss. So when you look at the next matchup here, if you talk about Ole Miss and North Carolina, we think that's a pick 'em at worst, 50%. You're getting a lot of percent edge just by simply taking North Carolina when know 75% of the field has selected Ole Miss. So now let's play the hypothetical that San Diego State wins. I would make Ole Miss a -2.5 to -3.5 favorite in that game. That's going to put it a little closer to probably 61, 62, 63%, but certainly not the 75. So either way here, you are getting pretty good leverage on the field by simply taking the play-in winner in this particular matchup.
Yeah, that's a lesson in how to fill out your bracket. If you're joining us late, go to cbssports.com to get all your brackets that you can fill out across the board. But the early edge bracket is at cbssports.com/early edge. That will take you right to our bracket. You can fill it out and you can be part of this early edge experience. All right, let's go. Iowa State, Lipscomb. Larry, I'm going to start with you. I mean, Iowa State, I think, continuing to deal with some injury issues, but they're a 3 seed. Lipscomb's a 14. Are we just advancing the Cyclones here?
Yeah, I'll advance them. Gilbert's out though. I don't like their chances of going deep though.
Chip?
I advance them here, but it is big warning signs because that's just not injury. That is like TJ Otzelberger's quotes, Keyshawn Gilbert's social media posts. We've got a couple of teams where player availability seems to be a contentious issue behind closed doors. I do not like, I'm all about vibes, Sia. I do not like the vibes around this Cyclones team. A group that was 22-2 when they had all 8 of their players in the lineup of the 8-man rotation, 3-6 if even one was missing, and now Gilbert's not going to be available the rest of the way.
Mike, round one, in spite of all that, we're advancing them past Lipscomb?
Yeah, definitely. I might advance Iowa State even further, just depending on, again, what we just talked about, who's picking who. I think they're a team that's going to get drastically undervalued the rest of the way. So.
Yeah, I mean, I know even in their conference tournament, what was it against BYU? I actually had the pick on BYU, and it was because I thought, I guess Gilbert and Lipsy were going to be out of that game, but they were really competitive against BYU even without those two guys. So maybe they can do a little bit more damage in the tournament. Zach, are we out on Iowa State? We've already advanced them, but just real quick, is it a yes on Iowa State for round one?
Yeah, it is. And with the ASUN, their conference tournament ended 8 days ago, so there's definitely going to be a layoff factor there. That's going to play to the strengths of Iowa State and in terms of defense. And like you said, they still been competitive even without a couple guys in their lineup.
All right, Tom, Iowa State round one.
Yeah, I would have thought about Lipscomb if they played a different team maybe in round one, but this isn't the matchup.
Okay, let's do Michigan State. Bryant's going to be an easy one. Let's go to Marquette, New Mexico. Let's see. Mike McClure, I'm going to start with you. I think this is a really interesting matchup. Marquette been like very underwhelming all year, in my opinion. Maybe Mountain West can get involved here, right?
Yeah, they might be able to. I think they could cover a spread. I did advance Marquette here. I will say that I don't like either of these teams going forward in the tournament. I think Marquette, we're still catching a little bit of name value from their, history in this tournament, but I do think they sneak by here and advance in the bracket.
All right, Roger Long joining the chat. He says, look at this crew of hoop heads. Chip, you're a hoop head. Do you like Marquette or New Mexico to advance?
I picked New Mexico, but I would listen to an argument. You talked about where Shaka Smart's team has been. It has not been the same team since like January 3rd, right? And they did give us that, the really hard fought win against Xavier back in the Big East tournament, show a little bit of life. Congratulations. I think that was their first win against an NCAA tournament team since January 3rd. And Xavier's in the first four. So the offense has looked really clunky. It's like Cam Jones, hero ball or bust.
Yeah.
You always know what you're going to get out of a Shaka Smart team in terms of their defensive intensity, but I just think you've got maybe a little bit of a higher ceiling with Donovan Dent and New Mexico.
Yeah, I think I'd be on New Mexico here, but my vote doesn't matter here. Larry, your vote does. I believe it's 2-0 to Marquette. Are we making it 3-0 or 2-1?
Oh, I said New Mexico.
Oh, you said 1-1. Excuse me. Okay, so Larry, break the at least temporary tie right now.
Yeah, another vote for New Mexico just because of how bad Marquette has looked down the stretch. It's been just a straight trend line of mediocrity for a couple months.
Zach?
New Mexico as well. In these first round games, sometimes it's as simple as saying who's the best player on the court. And when it's a guard play, I even elevate them further. And the best player on the court is Donovan Dent.
Tom Casale, are we? It's New Mexico advancing regardless, but are you on Marquette or New Mexico to advance here?
Yeah, listen, New Mexico was a hot pick last year. I think maybe people were 1 year off. Some of these teams really have to create turnovers to generate offense. Marquette's one of them. And the way New Mexico handles the ball, I don't think it'll be easy for them to do that. Close game, but I lean New Mexico here.
All right. So we have New Mexico advancing. Michigan State, Brian, does anybody I don't want to go through all five here because I don't think we need to. Does anybody want to raise their hand for Brian advancing past Michigan State? I'm assuming that's a no. Okay, so let's handle the rest of this bracket, and we'll be a lot quicker here so we can get to the other region. We're going to start at the top, Auburn and Louisville. Tom, I have to start with you here because I know you liked Louisville in round one. Are you advancing them past Auburn?
I think Auburn will slaughter either one of those teams. And if it's Creighton, I might give out my first play, college basketball play on SportsLine that's over a unit. I think they will massacre Creighton.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because Auburn's stock may be a touch down, so maybe you get a couple of points that you shouldn't be getting there. Chip Patterson, Auburn, Louisville. Are we advancing Auburn?
Look, you're going to ask for my vote, and I'm going to tell you what my bracket says, but that is me playing a little bit of bracket games and just rolling with the vibes. I've got the cards with the second round upset against a team that finished with 3 losses in their final 4 games. I had a lot of fun talking with John Henson, who was on our SportsLine stream and with me in studio for a couple days. And he just kept coming back. And the word he kept using was confidence. He was like, I've been a part of these teams that are 1 seeds and 2 seeds. And sometimes when you just run that hot, he just kept saying, like, I wonder if they peaked early. I wonder if they peaked early. And if they did peak early and they cannot lean on that experience to find another gear here in the NCAA tournament, well, then losing a game in the state of Kentucky to a resurgent Louisville program is one way I could see it going. So it's a lot of what like narrative plays, like you would do on the early wedge, but I've got Louisville in my bracket.
Maestro.
Yeah, Auburn for sure.
And Mike McClure, who we going with?
Auburn. And if Louisville somehow beats Creighton by, say, like 4 possessions, like 10 plus points, and they open this game at 7 for Auburn, I would lay the 7 with Auburn. I think the spread for Auburn against Louisville will be 9.5 or 10.
I love it. Tom obviously agreeing with that. All right,
Nah,
Zach.
I like that Louisville winning by 10 plus points. I'm down with that.
Yeah. Zach, we're already advancing Auburn, but any thoughts on Louisville pulling an upset here?
No, it's going to be Auburn for me. I think they're going to be easy to defend Louisville, who even in the ACC tournament, I saw a lot of bad shots, even from their leading scorer, Terrence Edwards. He shot horrible from the field. They'll let him get 20 points, shooting 7 for 20, 7 for 25.
All right, Zach, we're going to let you kick things off. Michigan, Texas A&M, 5 versus 4.
Give me Texas A&M. I think they do end up playing Auburn. Michigan, to me, maybe I'm just not impressed. They've had so many waves, ups and downs. I'm going to ride them down after winning the Big Ten Conference tournament.
Tom?
Yeah, I'm going to go Texas A&M here.
Okay. Mike McClure?
Texas A&M here for me. I still I'll give a little credit to the conference they play in. It prepares them pretty well for matchups like this, and I think they can do enough defensively to turn Michigan over.
I believe we already have a majority. Chip or Larry, anything to say about in your brackets, maybe Michigan advancing?
No, just because I didn't even have them winning that first game as we talked about. So yeah, I'll go with A&M.
And go ahead, Chip.
Yeah, I mean, the Michigan's floor and ceiling are so far apart to me. So, but if they take care of the ball against a team like Texas A&M, if they take care of the ball against a team like UC San Diego, then they can cause some matchup problems with Danny Wolf and Vlad Golden. But I'm not going to put a big fight against the Aggie wave that we've got right here.
Okay, so let's move on to scrolling down. We've got the play-in winner against Iowa State. We kind of, some of you addressed this early, Chip. We don't know who it's going to be, but we have plays on that. Either way, who's advancing out of this one, Iowa State or the play-in winner?
I will vote for the play-in winner, but I think that this one is absolutely coin toss type scenario where Iowa State, within the context of a single game, can be like 3 different teams. Forget like game to game or week to week. So the inconsistencies make it really tough to call, but I'll vote for play-in winner.
Mike, Iowa State or the play-in winner?
I'm going to lean. I took Iowa State here. As far as betting the game itself, it'll be a very interesting number. I think the number, if Iowa State was healthy against UNC, that number is probably 5.5. If they both get to the same spot, I think it's literally going to be 1.5. In which case I would be taking a shot on Iowa State over that UNC team. So I'm going to advance Iowa State here.
That's 2 for Iowa State. Zach, are we moving Iowa State on?
Yeah, it's going to be Iowa State for me. I foresee them playing North Carolina, and what we've seen with North Carolina, no defense. So that would be their 3rd game in 6 days. That's going to be a problem against Cyclones.
It's good.
Tom, is it Iowa State for you as well?
It is, and I'll just say this. We'll see if I'm right or wrong. I get the play-in stuff. I think we're talking about the wrong play-in winner. We'll discuss the other one on the other side of the bracket. I like their path a little bit more.
Okay, and Larry, I think you were the one left out here. It's 4-0 for Iowa State. I'm just curious, would it be the play-in winner as it maybe a game theory play, or would you be going Iowa State?
No, I like Iowa State. Let's make it a sweep.
Okay, Michigan State, New Mexico. I would imagine this is an easier one to call. Zach, I'm going to start with you. Are we advancing Michigan State?
I'm going to advance Michigan State, but I do think it's going to be one of the games where the higher seed is pushed till the end, but I do have Michigan State winning.
Tom?
I agree with Zach. I think they're rebounding. New Mexico State does a good job on the boards, but I think that will be the deciding factor in this game.
Mike, it's 2-0 for Michigan State. Are we making it 3?
Yeah, Michigan State, and I'll even say Michigan State wins double digits here.
Yeah.
New Mexico plays very fast. That's not great against this Michigan State team, and Michigan State's going to kill them at the free throw line.
And Chip, it seemed like you very much agreed with that take.
Yeah, I love that. I was just guessing that Michigan State would probably be like 5-point favorite, 4.5, maybe, somewhere like 5.5. Mike can, tell me what he would think on that, but I would lay that. I would race to go ahead and lay that on open, because I do think it's a game that the Spartans would dominate. Michigan State has depth, man. Like they just have so many bodies that they can throw on you. So everybody can just go at 150 miles an hour, going for rebounds, like the defensive intensity, especially when it comes to the front court, just wears teams down. So all Sparty for me.
Jen M says Sparty wins this region. Mike, do you have an idea of what this spread might be, Michigan State versus New Mexico?
If it is 5.5, it won't last but 5 minutes. I think it'll be 7.5. Is probably where it would be.
Fair enough. Larry, and you are also advancing Michigan State, correct?
Yeah, I have them winning the region. I mean, I think the last time that Izzo had a team with this much talent, with this high of a seed, they made it to the Final Four, and he's gone to 8 Final Fours. And I just love the way the region sets up with Iowa State banged up, Texas A&M, doesn't shoot the ball. We know Auburn's been a little vulnerable. I think it's Michigan State to the Final Four.
Very interesting. Okay, so we're going to zoom out here, courtesy of Ben. Let's go with, let's just stick with Michigan State and Iowa State. Consensus to me, based on what I'm hearing from everybody, is that it's probably going to be Michigan State advancing this round. Raise your hand if you actually want to make the argument for what looks to be a banged-up Iowa State team advancing past Michigan State here. Anyone? Oh, Mike McClure, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just Iowa State is still an extremely talented team. And it really would just come down to a little game theory in terms of filling out your bracket. I don't know, Ben, can we click on the little eye there on this matchup? I know this is only giving us data on who has what team advanced so far. But as you can see, 58% have Michigan State still in at this point and 19% on Iowa State. It's just going to be another one of those massive leverage opportunities. I would only suggest this if you don't have Michigan State, playing in the title game, right? But if you're someone who thinks Michigan State could get bounced at the Elite Eight or right in that range, then it would make sense to just essentially blindly play against them if you don't have them as one of your Final Four teams.
It didn't even occur to me to look at those percentages at the top. Obviously, if you're considering game theory, which you very much should be, and Mike, please correct me, if anybody else correct me if I'm wrong, but looking at, the amount of people that have one team advancing versus the other should tell you a lot about maybe where you should go. Not all the time, but where you should go sometimes from a game theory play. Mike, did I capture that well enough? I mean, I know you just kind of said it as well.
Yeah, it becomes more complicated the further you get into the tournament. But in round one, for example, when you're just looking at straight up round one, that's giving you a true number of who's picking who to win a game. So yeah, essentially 97% here. It would be more interesting if we looked at like an 8-9 matchup.
Yeah.
But you're going to get a percentage there. Then you can go look at your sports books, see whatever that line is, use the odds calculator on SportsLine, type in that money line, it converts it to a percent for you. And you can start to look for gaps. And what I would consider to be a meaningful gap in a round one game will be anything north of 10% difference between what your bracket field is doing versus what the implied odds are on the money line at the sportsbook.
Okay. And Tom, you wanted to levy an argument for Iowa State in this Michigan State matchup as well.
Yeah, Mike pretty much said what I was going to say. Like this, I thought it was a toss-up. And I kind of thought more people would be on Michigan State, so I took Iowa State. So I basically went with the same theory he did.
And I assume the other three, because you didn't say anything, Zach, are you also on Iowa State or potentially, or is it Michigan State advancing for you?
Yeah, Iowa State is going to be for me as well. And I think anytime you have injuries, sometimes it can help you because you're going to shorten your bench. You're going to know who's on the court. And for Michigan State at times, they can get a little wacky with their shot selection. We've seen it in a couple of games where they've been able to push late, but they've been in some games where they've had issues in that under 10 mark. A team like Iowa State, they can get past Izzo.
So confirm, Mike, Tom, and Zach, by a head shake, all three of you like Iowa State here, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so we got Iowa State advancing. I assume that's under Larry and Chip's objection. Do one of you two want to speak on behalf of Michigan State here before? I mean, Iowa State's moving on regardless.
I'm going to stay in the show, but under protest.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm with Larry. I've got Michigan State winning the region. So I'm okay. Yeah, I think this is one of those. I was with the 2019 Michigan State team. They were up in D.C. for the Sweet 16 in the Elite Eight. They ended up beating Zion and the rest of that Duke team.
Yeah.
And it was just, I was really close with that group. NCAA tournament's awesome. Open locker rooms. Like you really get a good feel for what's going on, pulse of a team. I think this is another one of those special Sparty teams.
All right. Eric David saying grad level course in gambling game theory from M2. And what's so cool is that the tool that is on the on CBSSports.com, and you can use while you're filling out any CBSSports.com bracket, including the early edge one at CBSSports.com/early edge. You can just click on any matchup you want, and the tool is going to show you where the game theory edge lies. I think that's really, really cool. All right, let's go to the top of that bracket. I think it was Auburn and Texas A&M. Chip, I'm going to start with you this time. Are we just advancing Auburn here?
I would not say that it would be that easy, and I would say that it's not going to be that easy because it wasn't that easy for Auburn when they played earlier this year. And Texas A&M lost back on March 4th. So I'm not going to say it's easy, but I would pick Auburn straight up here.
Texas Joel says this show has been super great. Thank you for saying that. Really appreciate it. Hit the like button, and thank you for being in here, everybody. Okay, let's go, Larry. Auburn. Are we advancing Auburn past Texas A&M?
Yeah, I think it's Auburn, Michigan State for the regional final.
All right. See, that protest is loud and true there with Iowa State advancing in our consensus bracket. Democracy lives. Mike McClure, Auburn versus Texas A&M. Who are we advancing?
Yeah, it'll be Auburn for me here.
Okay.
Not talking about covering the spread necessarily, but winning the game, Auburn.
And Tom Casale.
Yeah, just for the record, I don't disagree with Michigan State. I just played a little strategy there. But yeah, no, listen,
same stance. Yeah,
Well, when you're filling, just real quick, but when you're filling out brackets, it can't always be the take that, like, again, it's game theory versus who you think is going to win a certain matchup. And Mike laid out like where those edges might be when you're actually filling out a bracket. So I think it's important to note that we're filling out a bracket here. And so Iowa State makes sense on some level there. Tom, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I agree with Chip. I don't think this will be an easy game, but I kind of like the fact that was Auburn's worst performance of the year. Listen, it's always tough when you're facing conference opponents because they know each other so well, but close game, I give Auburn a slight edge here.
Zach?
Yeah, it's going to be Auburn as well. Big difference for me, probably the biggest from a matchup standpoint, is facing a team on their home court versus a neutral court. Texas A&M in that matchup, they were at home. They needed that win after 4 straight losses. Auburn, they raised their level on neutral court. We've seen them beat Iowa State. We've seen them beat Houston. They beat Texas A&M.
All right, before we close out this South region, instead of asking you individually, we've got Auburn, Iowa State in the Elite Eight here. Does it raise your hand if you want Iowa State to advance in this bracket? Okay, so it's 5-0 Auburn. Let's see. Chip Patterson. Any argument you want to make for Auburn? I mean, they are the #1 seed for a reason here. It is Iowa State. We've got pros and cons against them. Your take on this matchup?
I would take Auburn like enthusiastically. If you give me Auburn against Iowa State, knowing that it's the Elite Eight, knowing that we're this deep in the tournament, I think that would be the Tigers to win.